What's going on, church? So glad you decided to join us today for this daily devotional as we are walking through the One-year Bible in the book of Psalms. Let's jump right in. Today we're looking at Psalm chapter 60, verses 5 and 6. And this is David talking, King David, not Pastor David, the OG, the real one. And he says, "Save us and help us with your right hand, that those you love may be delivered." God has spoken this from his sanctuary, David says. "In triumph, I will parcel out Shechem and measure off the valley of Sukkot." You know, and here we see David in the middle he's in the middle of a battle, really, a middle of a war. And man, Israel, God's people, they begin to lose this fight. And David is discouraged. You know, he's crying out to God, and God, have you forsaken us? Are you mad at us? What is going on? And this is Old Testament. See, New Testament, we don't have to have these worries anymore because we have a promise in Jesus. But I have noticed, and this is what David does here, I have noticed that in every hard time I've ever been in every rough season I've ever walked in, I've always received either a promise, a special verse that God would speak to me that stood out to me, or a rhema word. What that means is an in-time, in-season word that helped me through that hard time. And God's been so faithful to do this. Now, whenever I have a verse that really stands out in the Bible, I begin to get a little nervous. Like, God, are you giving me this for a reason? Are you giving me this because I'm going to need this here shortly? But here, this is exactly what we see David. David's having a tough time. Man, he's having doubts. He's having worries. And he goes back to something to remind himself of something that God has already said. See, as believers, man, we're going to go through tough times. We're going to go through hard times. We're going to have times where we want to begin to doubt. And that's why it's so important for us to have a promise. You know, my first point for you today is to receive a promise. Man, God has promises for you. No matter where you're at, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you are about to go through, he wants to put a promise in your hand to hold on to. I've seen him be so faithful in doing this in my life. But the truth is, you can't receive a promise without being in his presence. And that's why, church, over and over again, every Sunday, we talk about the importance of being in his presence daily. Not just in these devotionals where I'm giving you a word, or on Sundays where Pastor Mike's giving you a word, but sometimes you've got to get alone with Jesus himself because he wants to personally give you a word to hold on to. And then my second point for you is, man, you have to practice your promise. You know, David is not just talking about standing on your promise. Yeah, standing on it's one thing, or having a promise is one thing, but you've got to practice your promise. And this is what we see David doing right here. David begins to recite the promise that he already received. In triumph, God says, he will parcel out Shechem and measure off the valley of Sukkot. This is the exact areas, the exact people they're in war against. And David is reciting out loud. He's practicing and rehearsing and reminding himself of the promise that he already received. And we have to do this so many times in life. When I think about at the beginning of my journey, you know, God giving me a promise that I was going to walk in ministry and walk into vocational ministry and be a pastor and all these things. And man, then hard times fell. A lot of those hard times I created myself. And man, I remember working in plants and working in construction, and nothing's wrong with those jobs, but I knew I was created for something different. And I began to doubt God's faithfulness. Maybe I messed up too bad. Maybe I missed my chance. And then God gave me Philippians 1:6, "For you can remain confident that you will bring to completion the good work that I have started in you until Christ Jesus comes back." I think about our adoption, man. God had promised us that we were going to adopt a child through private adoption. Well, guess what? When I got a letter in the mail that said you owe us $40,000 and you got a month to give it to us, guess what? That's more than I made in a year. But I knew I had a promise to hold on to. And God came through and gave us $40,000 in 4 days. Man, my wife, with our pregnancy, she's 8 months pregnant right now. Guess what? We held on to a promise for the past almost 9 years. Guess what? My back right now does not feel good. I almost missed even getting to be with you guys in this daily devotional, and it's become very discouraging at times. I wonder if I'm ever going to be who I used to be before this back injury happened. happen. But guess what? God has given me a promise, and I can take it to the bank. I just have to choose not to focus on what's before me, but to focus on the one who is for me. And he is faithful. That's why they call him the Rock of Ages. He's been faithful for thousands of years. He was faithful for David, and he will be faithful for you today, church. So get in his presence, get you a promise, and practice that promise. I'm so glad you are with us today. See you guys tomorrow. Love you guys. Praying for you guys today. See you later.